All right, we're here with Ethan Decker, and Ethan, the shirt is amazing. It
Thank you
just
so
is.
much. Thank you.
If you watch this on video, you'll see what I mean. I'm not going to tell you on audio what it is. You got to watch the video too. How's your day going, Ethan?
My day is blessed so far.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yep.
Where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah, it's hard to do better. I have traveled the world for fun and for work, and everywhere I go, I enjoy it. I love seeing new places, but I have had a really hard time trying to beat Boulder for a place that, my family wants to live.
I mean, I was just there like a couple months ago in Boulder, and
Yeah.
what a nice place. We were doing kind of a big tour of Colorado.
Oh, great.
And so we were like in Colorado Springs, Fort Collins,
Hmm.
Boulder, just kind of going around. It was all beautiful. It was really
Did
amazing.
you mostly stay there on what they call the Front Range,
Uh
or did you get up into the mountains?
no, it was mainly the Front Ranger. We didn't get up into the mountains. It was kind of our first stab at it. It's like
Great,
let's just
great.
go and then we'll definitely be coming back. Colorado's beautiful. It's amazing.
Colorado, beautiful.
Man, what a place. Seriously.
A lot to see.
Yeah, definitely a lot to see. So we got hooked up through I might get this on through Isla. Is that correct how we got hooked up?
Yes, Isla.
Yes, did it. And how do you know her? How did you guys connect?
She and my wife used to work together at a small nonprofit social justice innovation theater company in Boulder.
Okay, there's a lot of words. I mean,
I know. These things exist. It's a theater that was developed by Kirsten Wilson to explore important social topics via the transformative power of theater. And Isla and Kim both worked in that organization together. There might have been something that goes even further back, but I don't remember.
yeah, well, it's wonderful. Whenever she refers people to me, I always love it because it's always awesome people. And
She's a great person and a great connector.
yes, yes, for sure. And I was fascinated by like when she connected me with you, and your background is very fascinating. It seems like you started kind of one way, but you're kind of shifting to other things. Let's talk about you. How did this journey of Ethan Decker begin? I mean,
I have shifted gears quite a few times. When I was really young, people used to joke, they would call me ETV because I would basically be doing the little white boy version of Michael Jackson,
okay,
singing, and I was in musical theater. So, very much into performance. I got into theater heavily in middle school and high school, and even wrote some stuff for some local productions. And then in college, I got really much more politically involved. I went to Oberlin College in Ohio, and it's one of the first mainstream or white schools in America that admitted blacks, and first mainstream or male schools that admitted women. So it was fairly progressive. It's always had a progressive stint, and the student body is incredibly politically active. So I got really involved in politics and identity politics and sociology. So I studied sociology there. And by the end of it, I felt like anybody could make up any theory they wanted and find evidence they wanted. So I switched gears pretty heavily and got into ecology and hard
mm,
science, which is a misnomer because the hardest
yeah,
sciences of all are the social ones.
yeah.
As one guy says, um, when you try and study jet fuel doesn't change its behavior based on how it's feeling that day, or based on what other jet fuel is thinking, but humans do. So it's easier to land a rocket on Mars sometimes than it is to try and actually um, help young children get through the educational system,
Right.
let's say.
Yeah.
So I switched gears and got into science and became an ecologist and did a PhD in urban ecology and studied hardcore weird things like fractals and complexity. And I started to butt up against my limits of my ability and interest when it came to computer programming or statistics. I was good, but I never was fluent. I had restaurant level
I
statistics.
like that restaurant level. That's good.
Yeah, I could order things off the menu,
Yeah.
have a conversation with the waiter. And then I realized I really did have a bigger interest in culture and identity and creativity. So I became an editor of a magazine with an old high school buddy of mine. And I was supposed to be the publisher as well as the editor. The editor does all of the thinking and content, and the publisher is supposed to do all the business side. And I learned quickly I'm a crap publisher. So we sank the magazine, and looking around for things to do, I met someone during Fancy Pants skate night in Boulder. And yes, I had to wear fancy pants to get
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But Holly introduced me to someone else who introduced me to someone else. Next thing you know, I'm doing market research globally and got into market research and marketing. And it was a slippery slope from there to get into advertising. And that's where I've spent the last 20 years is marketing and advertising and branding.
So there's definitely a lot of shifting for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So how has each of those experiences influenced your current work in advertising and market research?
They come together surprisingly well. Surprisingly well. The deepest current, which might just be I'm a bit of a performer and I like to be on stage and I like to be a camp counselor and camp director. As I think Rory Sutherland said, 30% of advertising should be considered the B2B entertainment industry because we're entertaining our clients.
Right.
We're giving them a bright spot in their day between talking about supply chain issues in Singapore. And so I bring a lot of fun and energy and entertainment to what I do, which turns out is really helpful if you want people to change their mind or to be open to new things. Because when people are nervous, they get clenched. And when they get clenched, they close up. And when they close up, they don't change. So my goofiness and silliness and entertainment is a really big, thick sugar coating on the pill of brand science that yeah.
Brand science. Can you explain that? I think for our audience, what does that term mean, brand science?
Brand science is essentially taking a scientific approach to how buyers buy, how brands grow, and how advertising works. Really simply, there's a lot of nuance in there, but in the business world, there are lots of charlatans and there are lots of promoters.
Yes.
And the notion of snake oil goes back hundreds of years in snake oil salesmen.
That's right.
So the same is true if you even look at how people think advertising works. There are people writing popular books all the time that you should find your why or start with why, or that there are love marks that you should become, or you should have a purpose-driven brand. And some of these things have evidence, but to get to the real level of science takes a lot more work. It's a really tall hill to climb, and a lot of these theories don't make it up to the top. So as a PhD scientist getting into advertising, I was like, what is all this crap? Where's the truth? Where's the bedrock?
Right.
The bedrock we can really stand on. So I dug a lot deeper into the scientific literature, into the research that's being done in the industry to say what really is true about brands. And there is stuff there. There is a foundation to stand on. And that's brand science. The tricky part is getting it out of academia, out of the world of arcane, and make it easy and simple and useful. And so that's what I do. I help people apply the brand science to their companies.
That is awesome, because I feel like I've dealt with academia a lot in my life over time, and I feel like it's one thing to talk the jargon, the language with other academics, but then there's a disconnect between the public who not going to read a white paper, probably. It's like
Totally.
They're not
Totally.
reading it, you know, like
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
going on? They want to know what's going on. Like,
Yeah. There's a huge disconnect. I mean, academia has its own language, and
right.
the longer the word, the better, frankly.
Exactly.
Epistemological pedagogy, right?
Yes.
They get
Yes.
off on that because they want to get really, really, really precise about things. So they make up longer and longer words to do that. And then academia also has different currency. What they
Yeah.
really care about most in many places, not everywhere, but generally speaking, academia cares about publishing. That's the currency of
Right.
academia. And so they care a little less about application, about communication, about sharing.
Yeah.
That's where I fit in.
So you mentioned the snake oil salesman. Why is that persisted over hundreds and hundreds of years so effectively?
Because it's true, because people are constantly trying to make a buck, because humans, I think, are opportunists.
Mm,
Well, we talk a lot about human nature and are humans inherently good or inherently evil, etc. But humans are kind of inherently opportunists.
mm,
They will be good or evil depending upon what works best. And the same is true with cooperation and competition. The same is true with building up trust with your consumers versus fleecing them. That we are
mm.
opportunistic. Here's a great example. So, Darian, you said you were on vacation recently to
Yes,
Colorado.
you got it.
Do you did you go into any tourist traps?
Uh,
And maybe not in Colorado, but maybe a beach resort somewhere as a
yeah,
classic.
I mean, I don't know this, I mean, I went to the Cave of the Winds,
Okay.
which seemed very touristy in Colorado Springs. I mean, it
Yeah.
looked like a very touristy type of thing, you know?
Yeah. So you go to the Cave of the Winds and they're going to serve you some food at the restaurant there.
Right.
It might be terrible food because they know you're a tourist and you're never coming back. And yeah, you might leave a bad Yelp review, but it's in their interest to cut all the costs they can and
Mm,
basically serve you snake oil because you're going to be gone.
right.
Whereas, do you have a local restaurant you love near your house?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely have a low. It's called like it's Drayton Harbor Oyster Company. It's amazing. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And do they have a lot of repeat customers
All
from
repeat customers, primarily. Yeah.
because they're locals, because
The
they're
locals. Yeah.
in the neighborhood?
Yes.
So if they tried to fleece you all, they would quickly be shut down
Mm,
because word would spread, none of you would return, and
right.
they have tourists coming in by the busload to take advantage of.
Right.
So, if people can do the snake oil thing because it benefits them, sadly, they often do. But
Yeah.
if they need to create a really beautiful oyster bar and restaurant to sustain themselves, then they'll put in the effort and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So this probably is going to sound funny me saying this, but because I think of business, where does the ethical threshold happen in this? You're laughing. I know. It's like, where is the
Yeah.
ethic? Oh, okay. Maybe it's a bad question.
No, it's a great question. It's a great question because, again, we're all prone to it.
Right.
We're all, someone else, I want to say it was Dave Trott, but I think I'm misquoting. Everybody hates advertising. Oh, Droga. Pretty sure it was David Droga. Everybody hates advertising until they want to find their cat
Mm,
or until they want to sell their house. So imagine wanting to sell your house. We all have ethical questions about how we present our house.
yes.
Or even yourself, if you're going for a job interview and you want to, sell yourself to your employer, how much do you tell them about your past? And maybe you have a colorful past.
Mm,
So it's human nature to try and want to paint yourself in good light if you're trying to sell something. The problem is that there are often huge industries or chunks of industries or cuts or slices of industries where the motives or the incentives don't line up great with ethics. So that's when you get the Bernie Madoffs, and that's when you
right.
get the subprime mortgage thing. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah, and that was because all the middlemen kept getting cuts. You could get a $10,000 commission for a couple days of work,
Yeah.
flipping a subprime mortgage to a family who could absolutely not afford it.
Right.
So yeah, go for the quick money. So there's just a lot of opportunity to take advantage of each other in the world, and a lot of humans still do. It's a shame.
Do you think that's something that would ever change, or you think that's just so hard line into people?
Yeah, the way I see it coming from my evolutionary
Mm-hmm.
ecology approach is that a lot of it's still hardwired. It's still in our hardware, not our software, our
Yeah. Yes.
DNA. And so we are these opportunists who cooperate when it's useful, and we compete when it's useful. We are trustworthy when it's useful, and we fleece others when it's useful. And if the environment changes enough, then the jerks will hopefully be eliminated, be bred out of the population, so to speak,
Mm.
you know? So that's really when the biggest shifts happen, is when the system changes and those old behaviors no longer work and they just die off.
What's a
That's
good example of that? Like that we have like that like what's funny? I don't think this has completely happened, but remember when like people used to smoke cigarettes like crazy?
all
And
the
like all of
time.
a sudden there was a societal shift and you didn't see that as much. Is that kind of
Mhm.
the same thing we're talking about or something more
Yeah.
extreme?
No, that's absolutely in the zone. So here's another good example. You're right. Is recently with all the mask mandates
Yeah.
or vaccine mandates, people are, yes and no and have their own opinions. But
Right.
when in France, when the prime minister said you can't go to a restaurant unless you're vaccinated, boom, vaccine rates went through the roof.
Right.
The environment changed, so the behavior changed. Similarly, when all the indoor restaurants in America stopped saying you could smoke indoors,
Yeah.
boom, suddenly the behavior changed. So yeah, you have to look for the ways the environment changes and then things die off. So in a physical way, I don't know if you've got wisdom teeth or have had them
I've
removed.
had them removed. Yeah.
That's because our jaws are getting smaller and smaller because we don't need to chew
Right.
bark anymore.
Right.
So the environment has changed. It's become a softer, easier environment for us. So those big, expensive teeth, we don't need those anymore. So people
Yeah.
who have those big, expensive, costly, energy intensive teeth, they're starting to die off and
Yeah.
our teeth are getting smaller.
How do
Yeah.
brands play a role in like shifting the environmental kind of landscape to change behavior?
Huh, that's interesting because brands often respond to the environment more than they create,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So, so when for some reason uh, it's we see more ecological or sustainability regulations show up,
Yeah.
brands then jump on that and respond to that, and then you see, man, Coca-Cola, which also owns Dasani, the biggest, I think it's the biggest water company, water brand. Coke and Dasani currently have bottles that literally say 100% recycled plastic, as big as the logo. That's a lot of real estate
That
on a
is.
to
Yeah.
devote to a sustainability message. So they are responding to some pressures that they're feeling, and they might help create a slightly different environment too. I think brands often overstate how much they can influence culture. It's rare for brands to do that, um, but they certainly do react to changes in the environment too.
What about like Apple? Is that an example maybe of a company that shifted communication or use? I'm thinking of trying to think of like what has changed human behavior. Like the phone is like explosive change
The
in human.
phone, absolutely.
Huge.
Having the whole universe of human knowledge and connection in your pocket, it's insane. It's
It
like
is
Star
insane.
Trek.
It
Yeah,
is.
that has totally changed the environment for us.
Yeah.
You can't pin it on Apple because all the technology was lying there on the
Right.
table. And to some extent, they were the first ones to put it together into one
Mm.
iPhone. I mean, BlackBerry was already doing it, but it wasn't as
Yeah.
smooth. So, and that's true with a lot of innovation, is that 10 or 20 different organizations see the same thing at the same time, and then it's a race to see who made the first light bulb. Thomas Edison, but there
Right. Right.
were 20 other light bulbs being patented at the same time. So, but Apple, they took off the buttons, they made it sexy, they
Yeah.
made the music player a forefront piece. So they pushed it a little further than most other companies, for sure. But you're right, the cell phone has completely revolutionized the environment.
How was it? It made me thinking of, like, you mentioned about like truth in advertising and stuff. What is a truth in advertising now that may not be a truth in advertising in the future?
Hmm. You mean a truth about advertising and how ads work, or you mean,
Yeah, maybe on that. Let's start with that. Yeah.
okay. Um, huh. So the way I usually approach it is, how do ads work to sell product?
Okay.
And so um, companies want to know, do people even need to consciously notice the ad, or is it good enough to have Coca-Cola on the bus that goes by? And you just kind of take it in via osmosis,
Okay.
right? Well, it turns out that ads work better if we consciously notice them and recognize them, because later on, when we're thirsty, we need to think of something to order. And Coca-Cola, if you consciously saw that ad, there's a slightly higher chance that you'll remember Coca-Cola
Mm.
when it's time to buy something. Um, I think the best example of that lately, because it's been a revolution in it, is insurance companies.
Huh.
I'll bet you can name a bunch of insurance companies,
Sure. I mean, I see a bunch of ads about it all the time.
and
Like,
I'll bet you can describe those companies. Like, so,
well, sure, the State Farm. I mean, how many commercials? State Farm, Geico, all this stuff. It's like, and then
yeah,
they keep running different ads of the same thing. And then you have endorsers and all this stuff.
yeah, yeah. Like if I say Flow,
Of course. Yeah. How many Flow advertisements have
you
there
know which
been?
brand is that?
Listen, is that's oh my gosh, that's terrible. Why did I start thinking Aflac when I started?
Oh, you know what Aflac's mascot is, right?
I do. I do. Like, I don't know why I thought Aflac though. But I see the Flow commercial and I'm like, okay, I see all the different versions of Flow now and
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Ted, yep.
Yeah. But I
And so,
remember her. I don't necessarily remember like I don't know why I don't remember the actual thing. I remember her.
yeah, she's interesting. That's why.
Yeah.
She's visual, and she's got the white apron or whatever
Yeah.
it is, white something.
Sure.
And she's got some red or blue. They do that because they're trying to find a home in your brain, make a space in
Hmm.
your brain, so that when you think, oh man, I need to get insurance because now I'm a homeowner. What's
Yeah.
homeowner insurance look like? Then you'll think, oh, Flow. So I got to go check out whatever that brand is.
Yeah.
And if they're lucky, you remember Flow as Progressive.
Right.
And at least you know Flow is not Geico,
No.
because Geico is the
I
gecko.
mean, it's a gecko. Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
you're right. There's so many. There's so many of them. And then there's what uh American Farmers Insurance, something
Uh-huh.
like that. I remember that because of the actor on
Yep.
there. J.K. Simons, I think. I see him all the time.
Yep.
Like, it totally, you're right. Like,
And what's tricky is these companies have billions of dollars to spend, and even now, you and I are still hard pressed to remember precisely which company has which mascot,
yeah.
and even more, what they actually do different. Like, I don't know if Progressive is any better than Geico.
I don't know either.
Right. So I think that one thing that's true about advertising is that advertising is, and I think this is going to stay true and remain true. One of the keys for advertising is to try and make a home for that brand in your brain. And our brains are lazy and our brains are leaky. That's what I call it, because I'm a dorky camp counselor of a brand scientist. the science would say we are cognitive misers and that we have
Oh,
system 1 and system 2 thinking.
right.
But that's for,
Yeah,
us, the academics. I don't
that's
want
right.
to cognitive, but it means our brains are lazy. I don't really want to think about insurance if I don't have to. And our brains are leaky, which is if I think fondly of flow, I will think fondly of progressive insurance.
Right.
Whether or not, or you like that actor? What'd you say his name was?
Yeah, J.K. Simons, I think.
J.K.
Yeah.
Simons.
Yeah.
So you like
I
Simons,
do. Yeah.
and therefore you might feel more fondly towards farmers.
Right. Whether it's good or not. Whether I don't even know if it's good.
But that's how the buying brain and just frankly the human brain works. Is
Yeah.
our brains are lazy. We don't really want to do the thinking.
Yeah.
And our brains are leaky, which is if we have a good feeling about this and it's related to that, then we have a good feeling about that too.
Right.
I don't think that's going to change. That's pretty.
It's going to be pretty standard. What do you think will change, though? Is there anything on the horizon that you sense or see?
What does change a lot is the details of the game of media, for instance. So media is quite simply a trade-off between interest and ad space, right? And this is as old as radio and as old as TV. The first TV programs really were developed to keep your interest so that during the breaks they could show you an advertisement.
Right.
It was actually to sell ad space. Same thing with Instagram, or I don't know. Are you on any social media?
Just on LinkedIn. That's it, actually. I don't do anything else. No.
All right. But you know how they work.
I know
right?
how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. And LinkedIn is kind of there too, because there will be sponsored and promoted
Sure.
posts on LinkedIn now.
Yeah.
So there's this old phrase, if you are not paying for the product, then you are the thing that's being sold.
Yep.
So TV is that way, radio is that way, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok are that way, which is my eyeballs, my interest is being sold to advertisers. And advertisers pay Facebook or Instagram or NBC or WKYZ to get access to me so that they can show me ads. And that game shifts, that game changes quite a bit, and especially with social media, especially with just the fact that we all have a supercomputer in our pocket now.
Yeah.
That game changes quite a lot. But the fundamentals of buying and selling interest for ads doesn't or hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
People thought it would. There was a time, I don't know if it was Seth Godin or someone who talked about permission marketing. Now that consumers are in control, brands are going to need permission to advertise and market to them. And it didn't quite turn out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think brands are pretty good at understanding the psychology of human behavior. It's like, listen, if we get somebody to buy this, they're less, or like say we have this monthly fee, they're less likely to opt out of it because they're just not going to do the work to go in and cancel and change and comparatively shop. Yeah.
A lot of brands figure it out.
They figure that out.
They do. And like hotels, all of them have figured out that we're too sheepish as people, lazy, to contest all of the extra fees. Same thing with tickets. Have you been there lately?
Not lately, no.
All right. Well, Ticketmaster, of course, changed its name because everybody hated the fees that they would add. So they advertise a $70 ticket to go see Janelle Monáe. And then you go to check out and it turns out it's $112 after fees. And they know we're just too lazy to do anything about that.
It's crazy.
That's already got us hooked. So it's an open secret in the hotel world that you can just throw fees on there and at checkout, they just show up. So yeah, a lot of brands do know this. And yet there are a lot of brands also, or branding people, who don't quite understand how fuzzy and lazy and leaky we are as consumers. We are, as it says, cognitive misers. We're misers about using our brain power.
Right.
So a lot of clients I work with like to talk about educating consumers and
Oh.
showing all the benefits and getting into the details of the
Yeah.
specifications and how many megabips it works and
Right.
4 micron filtration. But no one really is going to do that much thinking,
No.
except your friend, Bill, who happens to be a PhD engineer.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Even like you see, like it feels like some organizations make it hard for you to get out of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, the delete your account button or whatever is like hidden in many pages. Feels like it to basically like you're not going to do this much work to get rid of this. You're going to give up because you're lazy. Basically, it's what it feels like it's implying to me.
Absolutely does. It's the
Yeah.
same with the unsubscribe button at the bottom of my email.
Okay.
It's small. It's the smallest button in the email. Or if you go to, you booked a flight, I'm sure recently,
Of course. Yeah.
the upgrade button is big and bright and red.
Yeah.
And the no thank you button is tiny and small. And that's because being lazy and being cognitive misers, we just kind of do whatever is in front of us and whatever seems easiest.
Yeah.
And so we're easy to steer that way. And brands do know this. So they do absolutely take advantage of it. And then as consumers, we resent them for that.
So what about this? I've thought about this kind of newer aspect of like book now, pay later, or buy now, pay later. That seems like that has become like in the last few years a newer idea. I could be very wrong about this. I'm not sure. Just I see it pop up and like I'm not sure if this is good for a lot of people actually.
Terrible. It's
Right?
terrible. Yeah. And again, a lot of companies will do things that prey on our weaknesses as humans.
Right.
And frankly, this is just the latest iteration of credit, of
Ah,
consumer credit,
consumer
right?
credit.
Because any responsible credit giving thing, like a bank, should gauge whether they want to take the risk on you and whether you are able to pay it back. But if you're predatory, and this goes back hundreds of years,
Yeah.
you give people credit, assuming they're going to default, and then you take everything, you destroy their life. And that's the mob, and that's banks, and that's credit card companies. And now the latest iteration is buy now, pay later. It makes the buying now part painless.
That's right.
And we don't plan that well as
Yeah.
like almost no species on the planet plans well. Squirrels hide nuts. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And
Not a lot of examples here.
yeah, sea elephants and seals eat a lot, so they build up blubber and fat for the
Yeah.
lean
Right.
time. But otherwise, most things on the planet don't plan very far in advance, including us.
Yeah.
So these companies take advantage of it. Buy now, pay later.
Man, it seems like you said, the less pain involved, the less thinking involved. Like if someone doesn't really have to like get out their wallet, it's like, let me take away these steps and
Yep.
one click buying. One click
Yes.
buying.
Yes.
This another example we could
It's
kind of this, right?
absolutely, absolutely. Amazon trademarked it because they knew it would be good. And in fact, as a brand strategy guy, I often tell clients, your job is to make it easy for people to think of you at all, to like you at all, and then to buy you. So make it easy for them to think of you, make it easy for them to buy you. You're right. One click buying is the ultimate
It's the
example.
ultimate.
Yeah. And it's hard when that kind of stuff we know is preying on people,
Yeah.
preying on children, preying on the weak, preying on the addicted. You don't want to make it easy. So that's when we as a society step up and say, no, we're not going to let children gamble because they will
Right.
spend all their parents' money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so what are the guardrails here? I mean, like it feels like companies can just kind of operate and do things
Yeah.
and prey on people's inherent kind of human condition aspect. Is there anyone that says, hey, this is not good as a brand or as a company and says we need to be different?
Yep. Fortunately, there are. Fortunately, just like I said, there are competitive and sneaky, conniving jerks, but there are
Hmm.
also good people in the world and people with morals and ethics because it works.
Yeah.
So, like your local oyster bar, the conditions are right for them to step up and do what's right.
Mm.
And we see that when things come back to bite a company in the ass, they change their ways.
Right.
When they have the foresight to realize it's in their self-interest to be good citizens. So we see that a lot where companies have social programs, CSR, corporate social responsibility, CSR. It's pretty common. So a lot of companies
Okay.
are run by decent people, and the decent people say the decent thing to do is be socially responsible, don't pollute, don't bribe foreign governments, and don't accept bribes. They do the right thing, uh, and so there are lots of them out there. Absolutely, it's just what makes the news is when
Right.
Wells Fargo cheats people, or when you remember when VW turns out their diesel engines were not that clean.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good example of okay, a company which slid into some pretty shady stuff
Yeah.
and they got their hand slapped big time. But now they've rebounded quite well.
I wanted
VW, I
to
think,
know,
is the
like,
number
just
one
what you
car
see
maker in the world.
potentially for the future in
Mhm.
advertisement, because it feels like we had a big shift with social media and all those things. Is there
Yep.
another shift that you're sensing or speculating about?
Yeah, there's one really big issue, and it's not resolved yet, which is the way that online advertising works right now
Hmm.
is predatory and cancerous. I hate
Okay.
to say it, but it preys on our weakness for scrolling. And so what you get actually is that all these feeds, like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, especially, they prey on our inability to turn it off
Okay.
in order to sell ad space. That's it.
Right.
If Procter and Gamble and Progressive Insurance decided they don't want to support that, then these companies would need to do something else. But these companies are raking in billions of dollars because advertisers want to put Flow and Tide and
Yeah.
in front of us.
Yeah.
But it's predatory and it's terrible and it's actually not only hurting individuals. I've got teenagers and they're devastated by social media, but it's bad for society.
Yeah.
The science there is pretty clear
Right.
that it's bad.
It's bad, man.
And so what I've been saying is scrolling is the new smoking.
Mm.
And think of how long it's taken us to get our heads straight about smoking.
Right.
And we're not done. We're not
No,
done. Millions of people in America and billions around the world still smoke.
it's true.
And it's the same with sugar. We now know sugar is one of the biggest culprits as opposed
Yeah.
to fat. And yet we have soda within a stone's throw of anything you can buy.
Yeah.
So we have not defeated these demons because they're addictive and they're fun and they make lots and lots of money for people. So I think scrolling is the next one, but it's a demon, and we're going to have to wrestle with that, and it's going to be a big fight.
I feel like it's a huge fight. How do I mean, like,
Yeah,
getting some sort of handle on that feels very large to me. Like,
yeah, it does, and that's again that I put it on the level of smoking and sugar
yeah,
because these are things that are going to take decades. They're going to take generations
generations. Yeah.
to resolve in the best way. I mean, it's amazing that the OxyContin
Yeah. Oxycontin.
price
Yeah.
is as small, relatively
Right.
speaking, as it is. I mean, the fact that we're buckling down on that's pretty quick when it comes to
That's true.
how long these things usually take.
Yeah. Cause that had a huge peak and then came like, it was a big, like the curve was steep and then it came back down.
Yep.
But then now it's like fighting fentanyl. and all
Yeah,
this. It's like it's just it feels like it just gets replaced with something else.
yeah, yeah. It feels a bit like whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole. Yes, that's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah. And again, that's because human nature
Yeah,
changes much slower.
that's
And
right.
we find all these things pleasurable and enjoyable. And we also are addicted to them. So that happens too.
Yeah,
Uh, and then as a group, we come together and say, maybe we shouldn't have lead in our paint. Or
right,
maybe we shouldn't have lead in our water. Or you know what, maybe children should not be allowed to smoke or drink alcohol.
right.
And so as a society, when we're level-headed, we start to put these things into place to protect ourselves and our families.
Yeah.
And it's just an ongoing issue because there's always something new to get excited about and addicted to.
You said when society's level-headed. That's an interesting statement.
I know, I know. Well, I mean, the good laws happen when that's true,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like consumer protection.
sure. Yes,
The fact that
yes,
there's FDA approval and you can't inject random stuff into your body. And it consumer protection laws were created to stop snake oil salesmen
right,
from
right.
selling snake oil that can literally hurt you or kill you.
Yeah.
So when society is level-headed, we come together and say, let's not allow people to sell snake oil.
Is society mostly level-headed after something happens that causes a tragedy, do you think? Or
Yeah.
like where's the like proactive nature of being level-headed? Or
It, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a really big question there, Darian. But I would say it usually is more reactive when
yeah,
society wakes up and says, "Oh, casinos, maybe not so great," or "Oh, smoking, yeah, not so great,"
yeah,
or lead paint or asbestos. Oh yeah,
yeah,
I guess we got to realize that's a bad thing, and
yeah,
then we do asbestos mitigation laws,
yeah.
um, which are costly and hard. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had to deal with a house with asbestos in it, but
No.
it's a pain. Or even getting FDA approval for skin cream
Mm,
or something like that, approval that your product is safe.
yeah.
It's hard work, but we put those hurdles in place when, again, as a level headed society, we say, yeah, we shouldn't be able to sell toxic skin cream.
Right. It
Yeah.
always just feels reactive though. It's like, where is the, let's say, insertion of this thing into society, let's say a product, and it goes, you know what? This could be really crazy. So let's put some guardrails on it. It feels like it's always, this could be a great idea. Let's just see what happens. That just
Yeah.
seems like it all the time.
It,
Like,
it's so human nature to do that.
right.
When it comes to tech, I heard this phrase, nerd sighted, which is like you're nearsighted, but for the
Oh,
exciting part of technology, right? So, oh, look what we can do. Adobe, Adobe,
yeah.
right? Adobe Creative, Adobe Acrobat, and Photoshop. I think it was them. They came up with this cool system where you could essentially train an AI on a celebrity's voice. And then you could type in words and it would come out sounding like Tom Cruise
Yeah.
or Bette Midler.
Right.
And like this is going to save us millions in Hollywood because we don't have to bring Bette Midler back on stage to do this thing. We can just fix a couple words that we didn't catch. So, this is exciting. So they're all excited about the nearsighted opportunity. And what they don't realize is, that means you can edit the president's speech to say something that he didn't. And that
Yes.
this can be used for propaganda politically to destabilize an entire government. And in
Right.
fact, that's what's happening with
That's,
fake
yeah.
fakes. You know about deep fakes,
Deep
right?
fakes. I watched a whole special about this. It was one of the scariest things. I thought this is going way too far for
Yeah.
humans. Like you can't, how do you get this back on track? I mean, it's when you start creating something that is indistinguishable from reality, what do you do with that? Like,
It's dangerous and like you said, it's hard to be proactive because I think a lot of people get excited
yeah,
either about the opportunity they think from their rose-tinted glasses,
yeah,
about the opportunity to fleece people. And then
yeah,
they what did they say? the game between black hats and white hats, cowboys,
Yeah.
black hats are the bad guys. The black hats are always two steps ahead. So it's the sheriff has to play catch up all the time.
Man, this is crazy stuff. Honestly, it's like feels crazier all the time
Yeah.
too. It's
Yeah.
this whole thing, just because you can do it, should you? Well,
Mhm.
maybe you should, but like think about the different scenarios of the pain
Yeah.
that it could cause. I mean, I don't know. I always think about stuff that way.
Yeah.
But, and then when money gets involved, it kind of like, money to me is kind of like when you're in love. If you get a lot of it, like it like basically disarms your prefrontal cortex, it feels like. And you just don't make rational decisions anymore, you know?
So true. So true. So when I work with brands and companies, I'm working with people.
That's right.
They're real people, and they have good things that they want to do in the world, and they want to see themselves as good people. And they want to, let's say, sell washing machines.
Yeah.
And so they know everyone's going to TikTok. And so let's do some advertisements on TikTok. And they don't necessarily do all the due diligence to figure out that TikTok is Chinese surveillance software.
Right. Exactly.
In fact, the State Department said TikTok shouldn't be available to people anymore because
Right.
they skim all of your passwords, they skim your facial recognition, and it's documented.
Yeah.
But these good people trying to do good, trying to keep
Yeah.
their job and put their kids through school or whatever it is, turn a little bit of a blind eye to that.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is tough. I mean, how do you have that? Do you have that conversation with them? Like, hey, you know what this really is? And then they often go, do they say it doesn't matter? It's a great resource for.
I have not had to have that particular
Mhm.
conversation a lot yet because I work more on the brand building side than
Okay.
the media buying side. And so the media people really are the ones who should be
Mhm.
saying, no, we shouldn't actually support Chinese surveillance software.
Yeah.
Um, but it does come up here and there, and I want to be a good person, or I want to see myself.
Yeah.
So I do try and bring it up when I can.
It's funny. I think we all want to be good people, but it's like these things get involved in our lives that pull us towards weird decision making things,
Mhm.
often monetary gain, you know,
It is often monetary, or it just feels
or
good. I want to be a healthy person, but I love sugar.
right, it's or fame. Like more people now, they just want to be famous. They want to optimize the internet for like social validity.
Yeah,
It's a strange world, man. But
it is.
I get people's behavior with it. I understand, much like yourself, I've studied this over. I totally get it. I understand. This is a very difficult override the mechanism is very difficult. It's very
Correct.
difficult to do. I get
Correct.
it.
Yeah. So we often have to put in place all kinds of tricks and then all kinds of social guardrails,
Right.
protect ourselves from ourselves.
From ourselves. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Ethan, this is incredible stuff. I love the way you present information. It just feels fun. Like you said, I think it goes towards what you said, humorous, fun. And I think that's when you talk about science, we're in a weird time with science.
Yep.
People are very shaky here and there about it. But I often said science has a communication issue. As someone who is very into science, I like to talk to scientists. Be like, you guys realize like there's a problem here. Like, first
Yes.
step is admitting it's a problem. Like,
That's thank goodness for Bill Nye and Neil
right.
deGrasse Tyson and those folks who get it and say,
Yeah.
most people don't want to talk about discriminant analysis and
No.
yes,
I'm not going to talk about post hoc analysis.
right.
Like,
No, there's a lot of good that's being done, and so
yeah.
and that's the other piece of it. Is for all of these predatory lenders or
Yeah.
surveillance capitalists and snake oil salesmen who are still
Yeah.
there. They're good people trying to do
Yeah.
good, trying to make things better. Sometimes there's terrible unintended consequences because
Right.
they're too nerd sighted. But
Never heard that term
it
before.
is nerd. I love it.
Such a great term.
So now when I hear about these optimists saying, "Oh, we created a new technology that blah blah blah,"
Yeah.
like, oh boy, they're pretty nerd sighted.
Pretty nerd sided. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Ethan, it's been a pleasure. Please tell everyone how they could connect with you and all the work that you're doing.
Sure. I am available all over the interwebs. I tweet a fair bit under EH Decker. I'm on LinkedIn. I post articles and things there, and like a almost weekly chart with little brand science, little